Communication and digital infrastructure, Mr. Harin Fernando, of course, here in the studios, alongside Mr. Anubhav, who is the regional head for South Asia, and that's, of course, a Viber we're talking about. Lots of questions we have for both gentlemen this morning, and we'll start off with the minister because...
And just before we do, go ahead. We'd like to let everybody know that we're Facebook Live.
We are. You can catch us right now on FB Live.
Okay, so obviously get a good glimpse of the minister.
Yes, indeed.
How he looks at 7:50 in the morning.
In the morning. Looking pretty fresh,
yes,
Minister.
Yes, he does.
And it's always nice to have wonderful folks like this in the studios. We obviously ran through some of the questions that we had for you, good Minister. And the first one is, obviously everybody wants to know what the new developments that are taking place in the telecommunications sector in general are. And you're the best person to give us a little idea on that. So please go ahead.
Okay, first of all, good morning to all of you, and especially to one of the two people that I used to like listening to.
Hey!
Say that again.
Lovely to be with you folks, and I'm not a very morning person, so I'm really mad at EFM for waking me up.
This early.
But either way, I'm very happy to be here. And yes, when it comes to telecommunication, I think it's a very big industry that it will take us further to connect us to the world. Sri Lanka so far I think has not done bad. The previous regimes too, the governments have done their part, I would say, on telecommunication, but it's a time that we need to really leapfrog and be there up on our game. If you look at the ratings, Sri Lanka is not far behind. If you go to the APEC countries, Sri Lanka on the 62nd position, comparing to India and China way below us. So I think we haven't done that bad. But what we need to do is, if you take, for a simple example, we have 20 million population, 22 million, but we have 29 million connections.
Mm-hmm.
But the quality of the connections or what they use is what we need to improve on.
Mm.
So if you see 29 million connections, but we only have smartphones usage of only 24%. So that's quite low. So if you only have a 24% of a smartphone usage, you would not have the access of connectivity on what you really want to do with the world of getting connected. So that's one thing that we want to improve. But
what would you put? Sorry, so what would you put that down to? You put that down to not being aware of what a smartphone can do, or the cost?
Cost. I would say it's basically the biggest hindrance could be the cost, and also of being not conversant of using such a device.
Right.
So these are the issues, and also the connectivity. I think we have got very good providers. 5 providers for a small country like us is quite a lot.
Right.
It's quite a lot, but the competition is there, so the coverage is there. We have 92% of some sort of internet anywhere in the country. So they can have any sort of an access. 92% of the country,
right,
they will have some sort of access. So we are trying to improve on that. That's one of our biggest challenges. So now it's about the speeds. It's about how quick you can get in there, how quick you can use it. So that's when fiber to home starts to play. So this is something that we're rolling out. As you know, fixed operators, we have only one monopoly, that is Sri Lanka Telecom is one of the companies that
our sponsors, by the way.
who clearly has a monopoly. So you need to sometimes create a market. I mean, that comes casted under me, but I always believe in market forces.
Right.
So you need to always have competition. So there are different models we're looking at. We're looking at the models where people will have more services, more support that they can get. So the telecommunication industry looks very interesting, and it's all about, if you really look at companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Viber, they all try to get people connected. Getting people connected means that you just get everybody connected. Means it's business starting there itself, being connected.
And also, one thing that I think we've obviously realized is the fact that our country predominantly is very tech savvy. We like to, every time there is something new that's been introduced, there is no hindrance in trying it out for the first time, and lots of people try to use it for their advantage. I think for a small country, that's a big deal for us, and we seem to be sort of increasing in being tech savvy year on year from the time that technology was actually introduced.
Yeah, of course. I think if you really even look at this way, I was really shocked recently. My mother is 58 years.
Right.
She sends me a Facebook request. I was like, is it could be true? Is it a fake? Right? So I mean, our Sri Lankans really go with the flow,
right,
and they really catch on to what's going on, and they're quite good. Kids, I would say, are born with tech now.
That's
doubt.
so true.
I saw a super advertisement where a child is born just coming off the mother, jumps and takes the phone and takes
And
the
runs away.
And that's pretty much the case now.
It is.
That's so true.
It is.
If you give a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old phone, he would know what to do the mother or father wouldn't do.
Yeah.
So I mean that's just born with them. So the technology is with them. It's just the challenge is with the rural communities, how to get them organized. I keep saying we are still an agriculture-based country. How do we bring the technology into the agriculture-based community? They still can make it used so well for their advantage. I mean, whenever I have a meeting, whenever I have something big, I'm always quite confused that whether it's going to rain. I love AccuWeather Check. I just go put the date in. I say it's going to rain, and it does always work for me.
Yeah.
So I keep telling my farmers. I said, do you know if you have a smartphone, you would know exactly at what time it's going to rain, because I'm from Badalur and my area always rains, and they need to do their harvesting according to rain. But sometimes they don't know when the rain happens.
Right.
And technology can take them into a different level. So they just need a smartphone in their hand. And also things that they could do is even the farmers, when the crop comes, sometimes they really get cheated on the price.
Right.
So they alone can have their own app. They would decide the price before they take it to the wholesale market.
Right.
Because sometimes one farm would go and test a cheap price and the other has to go with that price.
Right.
And they sometimes get cheated on it.
Right.
So there are certain ways that we can really make it more professional and productive for them. So there's a lot you can do. So the technology, communication and connectivity is what you will build everything up.
Yeah, I think the possibilities are endless.
Now,
really.
all said and done, all of this is so true, but affordability, now, that's the real issue here, because we have all the technology we need, but people spending decent amounts of money on it is the question. How much is a decent amount? And now with the 50% increase with the VAT, I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this, but this is going to be a burning question that lots of people will obviously want an answer on. Data and voice prices increased by 50% with the implementation of the VAT. What's our plan now that it's,
Well, okay, this is not an excuse, but I would say the biggest issue on VAT, I would say, people wouldn't understand something, but I think the biggest hit was on the telecommunication industry.
Right.
And I personally, I'm a brutally honest person, I was very upset when it was put in. But then, having said that, Sri Lanka has the lowest call rates. I think Anubhav would explain if he was asked this question, because he travels around the world. We have one of the cheapest rates in the world. But that is not an excuse. Please don't take me wrong, it's not an excuse. But what has happened is they looked at the numbers, they wanted to have a tax, but I was promised that it was a temporary thing, that they have to do it for 6 months.
Right.
But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to introduce new packages within this month and a half,
Okay.
at least to get for the youngsters who are using data. I'm trying to introduce a package by next week or week after.
Okay.
For 18 and 35, between 18 and 35, 50% off package, that they will have data usage. So for their education, for their work, that they will get their data 50% off. So those are things that those are gimmicks that I work within my system, because I'm just a minister, but then finance ministry and the government that holds office, when it regards to financial aspects, they do have to do these things. And also what I did was we introduced a package from Mobitel, which is again my gazetted company. I'm not biased onto one organization, but that is under me.
Right.
Therefore, I can make decisions on one company. So what we did was we gave free smartphones through a monthly commitment to government servants, whoever has EPF, ETF, Samurti. So we were just trying to get them connected. But then again, we got another problem. It's about spectrum. So our spectrum is very limited. So people don't realize the spectrum in Sri Lanka is completely taken off. Because we're still in an analog system. And because of our analog systems, all the radio stations, TV stations have completely got filled up.
Okay.
Fully filled.
Right.
So we have no space to develop ourselves.
Right.
And we are fully tight. So our organization can't really go out there and market it and get more connections, because we might run into a problem that our coverage can have issues.
Overlap one another.
Right. So we are taking it slow. So that's where we're trying to bring in new technologies like Google. We're trying to get in new technologies of a network sharing model, like let's say Dialogue, Mobitel, Etisalat. they can share their own networks, and
Right.
so their capex cost will be less. So these are all things within the 6 months. We have really worked ourselves out, gotten a plan together. So we're working it out. People are quite excited.
You
They
know
think
what?
that we're not doing something. But
Credit to you and all of
we're
the
all
folks
doing
that
this.
took over on the 8th of Jan. At the end of the day, it's not an easy task to rebuild, and that's what we're all trying to do. We, just want to know the actual truth behind some of the things that are going on. And as far as telecommunication go, again, the question is, will prices reduce because of this VAT scenario?
I'm telling you, it will.
It will.
It will by December. I was
super.
just reading the paper. The Prime Minister just says birth revision is only for 6 months.
Good.
So,
Until they have a chance.
Super news.
the papers, that's only 6 months. He's really a man of his word. I'm not saying because he's my Prime Minister, but he's also somebody who's very tech savvy as well,
Right.
for his age, and he does understand about technology. So he's really working very closely with us, and I have already told him the impact that people have on this. But failing which, we will make sure that people have different advantages of getting price reduced, and I'm working on few models if they don't do that either.
Super. Thank you so much, Minister. A few more questions. Google Loon. Okay, we heard about it. We were excited about it. Tell us about the situation with Google Loon.
Well, to be honest, again, Google Loon is a brilliant innovation. I've been into USA. I've been in Silicon Valley just to see the technology. It is fantastic, and the Sri Lankan government is not spending a cent on this innovation. And Google, we were able to bring Google because I'm really proud to say we had a fantastic Sri Lankan who is top notch in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And he's the guy who got us involved. He was one of the starting guys with Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook.
Wow.
So he's
The same guy we know?
No.
Okay.
No, we wish.
He's the guy who actually when Mark Zuckerberg told him to bring 1 billion users.
Okay.
He's the guy who actually turned it around on Facebook, so he got a share on Facebook.
Wow.
So then he sold his shares and he became a billionaire
Right.
in Silicon Valley.
Right.
So he has a very good say in Silicon Valley. So
Right.
we approached him,
Right.
and he took us there, and
Okay.
he got us to Google, he got us to Facebook. So that's where we got our contacts there.
Right.
And I mean that worked
That
very well
alone-
for us.
that alone
is
And
huge.
then immediately what I did was I came back to President, I pleaded him, I told him this is so important to us, we are on the map now. I said appoint him as a Silicon Valley ambassador
Right.
for Sri Lanka,
Right.
and we did.
Okay.
So we appointed him, and then what happened was then Google came in, and Google, when they came in, they wanted Sri Lanka. We invited them to do the pilot. So if this happens, and if it works, Sri Lanka will be the first country which will be entirely covered with 4G LTE technology, first country in the world. And all our telecom operators would not have their capex cost, because the capex cost is going to be so low, because they don't have to put those literal towers.
Right.
That's where the mowing cost goes, and they
Right.
sometimes duplicate. Let's say DSLR puts on the same place, Mobitel puts on the same place. They don't need to do that anymore.
Right.
It's a brilliant technology that they have. So some people say it's not secure, but I mean, I'm not a techie person, but then we were given the clearances, we were quite okay. So we wanted to do the pilot, but unfortunately, I'm being again brutally honest, working in a government, I'm used to a bit of a private sector. It's very difficult, and it's really difficult getting certain things done. So we bring all these kind of real working, like Silicon Valley guys. So because we had to work with TRC, and they have to release us a spectrum for pilot,
Right.
and we are, I mean, they're giving us
A hard
big
time.
run for our money.
Doesn't that come under you?
It doesn't. Unfortunately, I'm very obvious, but the TRC doesn't come under me. So there's in our own system we have certain bottlenecks. So we need to clear out. But unfortunately, we're quite transparent, and this is something that people wouldn't really realize how the system works. So we have things called an economic subcommittee. There's a prime minister. There are all ministers sitting there. So we have to present every week, and they evaluate it. It's not just unsolicited one person signing it and sending it. It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a process. So even that process, sometimes still the bureaucracy runs in it. So there are other organizations who does not want Google coming in because they still want to have the towers.
Yeah.
And so that's where they make money.
Right.
And so there are lots of things that you need to work around. So I'm working really hard. I've got the president is fully with me in this. Prime Minister is with me on this. But still, bureaucracy happens in Sri Lanka in a very, very big way. Even the ministers gets pushed off. Even Prime Minister sometimes is not being listened to by the bureaucrats. So it's something that I think as a government we need to look at very seriously. But I think we've given them a deadline, but by end of this month that we need to sort it. And I just have to say, because we're still on an analog system, we've got a Japanese aid, very good aid, and also it's a very good funding source as well, very small interest loan by JICA. So we're trying to switch from analog to digital.
Right.
The moment we switch from analog to digital, our spectrum is completely going to clear out.
Okay.
Then we would not have issues on spectrum, because even for Google, they need to release a spectrum. What we have is on a 700 megahertz, we can't find a spectrum because it's been fully taken out by TV channels, and we're trying to move a TV channel, so the TRs don't allow that TV channel to move away, and they said don't move. President's letter is there, Prime Minister's still don't move.
Wow.
So once you move from analog to digital, obviously you can do almost anything at that point, yeah. But is there a cost that the consumer has to bear?
Not really. It'll be a 2-year. I mean, first and foremost, it takes about 2 years to do that.
Right.
The moment the spectrum gets cleared out, government can make revenue.
Right.
So the moment the government can make revenue, they will have to look at a model how they're not going to put the burden on the people.
Right.
The particular company who's digitizing has this whole model, right? Where there may be certain adjustments that you need to do on your TV systems as well,
right,
to be able to watch digital TV
as a receiver.
Well, as a receiver,
right?
So there are certain things that you need to do, but what I saw from the outside is the implementation body of the digitization, because I'm an observer on the board,
right? But
the person on the implementation part is done by the media ministry, right, for this particular project. But I'm on that whole committee. So when I saw that, what happens is a particular company, the Japanese, it's done by the Japs,
right?
And what they're going to do is, there is a cost involved, but they are going to absorb it. I mean, they're going to change it. The Japanese, it's in that whole cost of it,
right,
so, of changing individual house receivers as well.
Right.
So how it's going to cost, I don't know the exact model,
right,
but I assume that it will.
But it's been absorbed, is what you're trying to say.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I think it's absorbed too.
That's great.
So off the record, just we have so many questions, but when did you actually realize in your life that politics would be something that you might actually have a chance of doing? How old were you?
When my father kicked me out of the house.
Is that,
he actually knew that.
And you went straight into politics, huh?
I thought there's something that I want to teach him a lesson. I thought
we're so happy kids are in school right now.
Good stuff. You know, the future obviously is bright for all of us Lankans, and with folks like you spearheading the initiative and bringing in new prospective, clients and opportunities for all of us Lankans. Like I said, the future is very bright, so we're so excited about it, and we thank you, Minister, for your time. We had a few other questions, but since we are short on time, we'll obviously conclude this segment and we'll return after the break with Mr. of course Anubhav Nayyar, who happens to be the regional head of Viber South Asia, to be exact. That's happening right after this tiny little break. Good morning.
I'm done.